People tell you Florida's not cold, and they're right for 48 weeks out of the year. But there are 3 or 4 weeks where it does get pretty cold. And temperature-wise, you might make fun because it doesn't actually get freezing or anything. But with the humidity, the cold is just so much worse. And so there was one time we were just biking around in January in a lightning storm at night, and just the wind was going crazy, the lightning was going crazy, the thunder's going crazy, and it's freezing cold. And it was a long bike ride, but the crazy weather, definitely a huge part of the work there. I had Jell-O for the first time on my mission, which is weird because I'm from Utah, but that was just the first thing that came to mind when you asked me. But there were times when we would eat like local Hispanic foods with bones still in them and things like that. So, you know, not as crazy as actually going to those countries themselves, but you got a little sample of it. I hadn't had Jell-O before now. I got way more into running on my mission. For the first 18 months or so, we could use like the gyms in our apartment complex to work out in the morning, but then my mission president nixed those. And so we had to just kind of fend for ourselves with exercise, and there was no way I was going to stay awake through it in the apartment, so we would get out and run. So I got a lot more into that. We had an investigator who had progressed really, really fast and come a lot farther along than we thought he would. He had been pretty stubborn about everything in the beginning, but we just kept working with him. And he just randomly like disappeared. His mom, he was living with his grandma when we were teaching him, and his grandma and his mom got in a fight, so his mom took him, and we still aren't sure where he is. And that was really difficult because he was so close and he had made so much progress. But I remember praying for him on one particular night and just asking Heavenly Father to not give up on him. And I just got the very strong impression that he wasn't going to. Heavenly Father wasn't going to give up on him because he doesn't give up on anyone. And so it was very difficult, still very difficult. I still think about him a lot, but I know that he still has a lot of hope. Faith, hope, and charity are what qualify us for the work and for, you know, all the blessings of heaven in general. Kind of a controversial topic, I guess, but when I started, I was so focused on obedience, you know, on being, you know, top notch on keeping all the rules and everything, but I kind of lost sight of that. It got to the point where, you know, it would create a lot of conflict with my companion if I felt like he wasn't being obedient enough. It got to the point where, you know, obedience was taking over faith, and it was making it harder to have hope, and it was making it harder for me to feel love. And that was kind of a difficult lesson to learn because, I mean, obedience is definitely extremely important still, but I learned that it is a result of faith, hope, and charity. It's not, you know, above them in any way. And so really, you know, working on making sure your faith is where it needs to be, your hope is where it needs to be, and that your charity is where it needs to be will help everything else fall into place. And that's what you need to focus on and put the most effort into. The last area I was in was pretty difficult. I was on a college campus, and it's hard to get college kids to commit to anything, especially in an area in the world where, you know, it's becoming more and more secular. We didn't have a ton of success when I was there. I was there for 4 months, right at the end. And I remember when I was getting to a month left, to 3 weeks left, to 2 weeks left, just the thought that, you know, I might be done. I might not teach anyone anymore that makes any significant progress. But then my second to last Sunday, this girl we had never seen before in church just walked up to my companion and I, and she said that her boyfriend had been looking into the church. He had read the Book of Mormon, and he was ready to get baptized. And we went over to teach him that Friday, and the lesson was the smoothest lesson I ever taught. It was the most just like textbook perfect preach my gospel lesson I think I had ever experienced. And I just remember at the end of that lesson just testifying to him and inviting him to be baptized. And when he said yes, and when we set the date and everything, even though I wasn't there for the actual baptism, just having that experience with him and watching him show that faith, even in just a small moment, was really meaningful to me. I'd say just be ready for anything. Try to go in, I mean, this is obviously advice to missionaries who are going to Orlando. I think this applies to pretty much a mission anywhere, but just go in with a very open mind. It's hard when you have like preset expectations of what, you know, your life is going to be like. There's no way you can be completely mentally or emotionally or even physically prepared for that. And so go in ready to make some mistakes, to trip up for the first couple weeks, because it's a huge change, obviously, and there's no way to be completely ready. And just kind of roll with whatever comes your way. Do your best to just kind of keep smiling, laugh at yourself when you mess up, and just keep going, because you will figure it all out. And you know, it's a lot easier to figure it out if you're not trying to like conform your life to what you thought it should be like, and instead just kind of going with it and trusting your leaders, trusting the Spirit, and you know, trusting yourself, because God's gonna help you through it.